Hockey Inside Out, presented to you by the Gazette.
We're back with another episode of Hockey Inside Out. Chris Nilan back with us this week, and Dave Stubbs, who has a copy of Chris's new book, I believe.
I cannot wait to dig into fighting back the Chris Nilan story. It was that, or it's going to be a great game, The Forgotten Leafs: The Rise of Professional Hockey, written by our Prime Minister, Stephen Harper. And when I put the two of them side by side, I figured, I think the stories
Good
in this
choice.
book, Knuckles, I think are going to kick ass.
Good choice. Actually, I don't have anything against the Prime Minister, Stephen Harper. It's the mayor I have an issue with.
The tweet this week with David Desharnais making news. It looks like Denis Coderre not only wants to be mayor of Montreal, wants to be GM of the Canadiens. What was your take on that, Dave?
I was a little surprised when I saw Denis come out as he did, but I've known Denis Coderre for a long, long time, and here is a guy who is a sports fan, first and foremost, and he makes no excuses, no apologies for this. He figured he was tweeting as a fan of the Montreal Canadiens, and you know what? Good for Denis Coderre to do that. No one died. I mean, I think still that he will probably want to take a little bit of stock in the fact that when he speaks now, it's no longer white noise on Twitter like a lot of us are. I think that when Coderre speaks, people are going to understand this is the mayor of Montreal. So I kind of think that maybe what David Desharnais should do is wait until the mayor's inauguration, his swearing-in ceremony, and carpet bomb him on Twitter himself. I think that'd be great fun. But Davey's not on Twitter, so.
What would you have done, Knuckles, if a mayor of Montreal had tweeted about you?
Well, I wouldn't want to react to it, but being a teammate or a friend or seeing a guy like David who's struggling like he is, and you know, honestly, I understand the mayor can be a fan, but the mayor is the mayor full time, around the clock. And when he writes something like that, a one-way ticket to Hamilton, you know, I look at it as a father, as a teammate, and if that was my son, I'd be awfully upset with it. You know, the mayor obviously has enough on his plate with, you know, the infrastructure in this city. I'd like to see him spend a day in a wheelchair and try and get around here and try and get into the buildings, restaurants, places in this city that people in wheelchairs don't have access to because, you know, he's quick to the trigger with David Desharnais, but why don't you be quick to the trigger with getting something done to this beautiful city?
I heard a comment, you know, if Jean Beliveau was mayor of Montreal, would that be something Jean Beliveau would do? I don't think so.
No.
David Desharnais, what do we do? What do the Canadiens do with him now?
I think the first thing that Denis Coderre, just to go back to him for a second, if Denis really wants to punish David Desharnais, you don't talk about sending him to Hamilton. Put him on the Champlain Bridge for about 2 hours. Just let him drive back and forth.
I'm sure
or
he's
maybe,
been there.
Yeah,
right?
it could well
Going
be.
to practice.
He may be parked there now. It's going to be the Champlain Tunnel before we're all done, I'm sure. I mean, you just want to wear water wings when you cross that span. I'm not sure. Is Hamilton going to be perhaps the option? I think it may not be a bad one. Desharnais is going to have to clear waivers if the Canadiens send him there, but I don't think anyone's going to touch him on a 4-year, $14 million contract extension that he signed. I think that he may just be able to get a little bit of ice under his skates, and he may be able to get a bit of that confidence back. I think that's really the thing that's troubling him now, and the fact that he's not going to get a lot of ice. When you have Brandon Prust coming back again, he's going to be down one more on that depth chart. So I don't think that that's a problem, sending him to Hamilton. It's not punishment. Maybe it's just something that's going to help him to rekindle his game a little.
I cross that Champlain Bridge every day and cross my fingers and hope I get across it. Desharnais is a French-Canadian playing for the Canadiens, Chris. The pressure, you look at, you know, with Louis Leblanc, Brisebois went through it. Can a French-Canadian succeed in the fishbowl that Montreal is now?
For sure they can. You know, again, he's struggling. He's having a tough time. Look at Doug Wickenheiser. Wasn't a French-Canadian, and what happened to him. And I know he's a first-round pick, but he went through all the torment and living under the microscope and that whole Denis Savard, Doug Wickenheiser thing. But again, David Desharnais, not punishment. I think he needs an extended period off the ice, in the press box. And if he does clear waivers, and you know, there's teams like Florida. I mean, if Florida's willing to take Scott Gomez, and I know it's at a reduced price, come on. David's a lot younger. He's a kid that obviously struggling now. I feel bad for the situation, but he has to work his way out of it. I hope he does. Honestly, I know what it's like to not be playing well. and being under that microscope.
He certainly has a lot of support, too, from guys in the room. And when this Coderre thing went down, I mean, Max Pacioretty and Josh Georges, Michel Therrien and Marc Bergevin, also in Toronto at the GM meetings, all came out and said it was inappropriate. Pacioretty was incredibly angry. In fact, he was absolutely furious. I mean, those guys do have a history, Max and Davey. Those guys are friends. They've been line mates. And you have to figure what kind of a precipitous fall this has been for David Desharnais, from centering the number one line, the most productive, really the only productive line for a good chunk of last season, to now being literally sitting in the press box, and he could be there for a good long time. It's got to be a really difficult hole to dig yourself out of.
Carey Price, 45 saves against Tampa Bay. Is that the best game you've seen him play with the Canadiens, Chris?
Yeah, he was solid, you know, just on his game. He made some great saves. Third period, right at the end there, when he came across the pad save, he really anticipating well. He's in front of the puck. He's seeing the puck. You know, this kid, he's on his game. He's not getting the goal support, which would be nice. But again, it's a team that has done well on the power play, the Canadiens. They've killed penalties really well. They're up there, top 5 in the league. And, you know, you look at where they struggle, and it's 5-on-5. And I think that just goes back to the fact that they're a small team and they're in transition to become a bigger, better team.
Price was absolutely in the shootout.
He did, and it's unfortunate that if you were watching this game on TV, from what I understand, you didn't see that when Price was scored on the first shot. He was so upset he took the puck and just snapped it down the ice. Well, Ben Bishop in the other ice, in the other goal, had his head down and was just paying attention, getting himself focused. Never saw it, and the puck went through his pad. So Price scored about a 185-foot goal, and maybe, as one of my followers on Twitter said, maybe the Canadians should have picked up on that and realized you don't go high on a guy as big as Ben Bishop. Go between the legs, because Price certainly scored on him.
Too bad he didn't have his head down earlier in the game, Ben Bishop.
True.
We'll come back after a short break, and we'll have the Knuckles knockout. We'll see what's on Chris's mind this week, and we'll speak a little bit more about his book that's just coming out. Welcome back. Here's Knuckles knockout for this week.
I know we're in the age of social media, but the negativity surrounding the game today is just ridiculous. Every time you turn around, someone on Twitter is always looking to throw someone under the bus. What happened to the real fan, the fan that's stuck with his team, whether they win or they lose? And sometimes it just gets out of hand. And honestly, when I look at David Desharnais' situation, and I understand that people have the right to be critical and to expect more from him. He's a guy who's struggling. I look at the way he feels right now. You know, we'll forget often what people said, we'll forget what they did, but we'll never forget the way people made us feel. And honestly, I can empathize with this kid, and I just hope things get better for him. But I just get sick of the negativity.
I think the attention span of fans nowadays is so short, too. I think you mentioned, Chris, the social media. You can go back well before social media. I mean, this is a city where George Hainsworth in the 1920s replaced Georges Vezina, who died of tuberculosis, and Hainsworth was booed for no other reason than he was replacing Georges Vezina. You've had Jean Beliveau booed in this city, Patrick Roy, you've had Hall of Fame goaltenders top to bottom, you've had the greatest players who ever played the game in this city have been booed. But I think you're right. I mean, there's a negativity here, and at some point it just starts to wear on you. A guy like Max Pacioretty has just completely dropped Twitter. He's dropped his account. He said, you know what, I just didn't need the bitterness anymore. And you have so many people trashing people left and right, and it's so easy to do. Carey Price had the game probably of his, certainly of his, the recent career anyway, the other night. And, you know, the next soft goal that he lets in, all of that will be completely forgotten, and he's going to be a bum, and let's get him out of here for a bag of pucks. Your book here, Chris, Fighting Back, can you tell us a little bit of the story behind it?
Well, you know, I decided to put everything down on paper, and I just really, you know, after doing The Last Gladiators, the documentary on fighting and hockey that was centered around my life, you know, people approached me about maybe doing the book, and it was kind of nice to tell my story and let people know, I guess, a part of me that they probably don't know. They always see me as the fighter in Montreal, and that's basically all they know about me, the way I played hockey and what I did. Some people know other things, but there's some great stories in here about where I came from in Boston, how I made it to the NHL, how I dealt with my transgressions after my career was over and how I got back to my feet. It's a book of a little bit about redemption, about you know, striving to be better.
How are you going to surprise people about Chris Nilan in this book? Is there one thing in here that people don't know about you that you've been happy to tell?
Well, it's happy to tell. I guess my relationship with my father-in-law, who was a pretty dangerous man back in Boston. He's the head of the Irish Mafia there, and my first meeting with him when he stuck a gun in my face and kind of read me the riot act. I don't think a lot of people know about that. So
there are riot acts and there are riot
well,
acts.
how to take care of his daughter, per se. And you know, we all have that meeting at one point, but mine just happened to be a gun involved.
Are there any Chris Nilan stories in here? Your buddy was inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame this week.
You know, he obviously mentioned in here with the rest of my teammates, but yeah, Chelly, it was awesome to see him get in the Hall of Fame. He deserved it. He's a guy who loved the game. Obviously, the longevity he had. He was a multifaceted player. He was great on defense, a good offensive player. He was mean. He was tough. He could fight. He just loved the game. He loved being in the locker room, you know, first one in, last one to leave.
Did you ever ride the stationary bike in the sauna, which was one of his workouts?
No, I watched him do that. You kidding me?
And he's still a voracious trainer, right? I mean, Chelly is still in great shape. He still works out, and it was funny. You saw some of the photographs of the Hall of Fame post-induction party that he had. And guys from Hollywood, he had entertainers, all these wonderful people that you just wouldn't normally see or necessarily associate with professional athletes. But Chelly certainly walked in a universe that was a little bit different than the average hockey player.
Chelly went Hollywood on us, big time.
You've talked about the impact that Larry Robinson had on him. Can you speak just a little bit about that?
Well, you know, Larry had an impact on all his teammates, you know, but being a defenseman, it was a little different for Chris. I think he gave him some direction, gave him some help, told him certain things as a young player here that he had to deal with, not just on the ice, but off the ice. And I think that really helped Chris, you know, get to the level he had to a lot quicker than maybe some kids who don't have that direction. And, you know, I look at the situation with PK here, and he hasn't had that role model like a Larry Robinson. And not to take nothing away from Andrei Markov, but it's just not the same as Larry Robinson.
He had Hal Gill. Hal Gill was working a bit of that role with him for a while, and he was mentoring him and
come
so
on,
on.
Hal Gill and Larry Robinson. The only thing there that's the same is maybe the height, but come on.
I want them to bring back Hal Gill, so when they have the fan practice in January, we can have a Hal Gill versus Douglas Murray race. Okay, I want to see that. You bring the calendar.
Win.
You bring the calendar, okay?
Gill will win by a leg.
Douglas Murray needs to put on a flasher when he's turning.
He sort of looks a little bit like one of those ocean liners that takes a really long time to turn around. But you know what? He's done some good things.
Gets in the
He
way.
gets in front
He
of the
shots and
he does.
He's not the best skater.
He's doing what the team wants of him.
He works
so far.
his butt off, and he's determined guy.
We'll see what happens, though, when we get Alexei Emelin back. We're going to see which defenseman is going to be sitting. My thought is might be Frankie Boo. I think that Bouillon might be sitting upstairs, but you know, some people
Come on, he's 38 years old.
Yeah.
You know, it's time to pass the torch. I know that'll probably be tough with Michel because Michel has had him since junior.
Yeah, they're tight.
He's his man, and you know, he struggles at times out there, like everybody. But again, he's a committed guy. He wants to play well, but you know, again, it's getting long in the tooth for Frankie Boo.
Well, Tenorti and Bull, you're both down in the minors still. They've got sort of rotating players coming up. I imagine that's a good thing to keep guys hungry down in the AHL when you know that your number could come up.
Well, you know, it's different than it used to be. Come on, Montreal Canadiens, I know back in the 70s, right? They 4 Stanley Cups in a row. You in the minors, you'd be there for 3-4 years.
That's
I mean,
right,
I'm never going to get a shot. Yeah. Today, it's a whole different thing. You know, this is a team that, you know, again, they're not at the top in the standings. There is transition. There are injuries. So I'm sure guys down there know that if they work hard, they stay focused, and they do well, they could get an opportunity.
Yeah. Well, we hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Hockey Inside Out. Good luck with the book, Chris.
Oh, the book. Oh, yeah, the book. See the book? Get out and get the book.
I'm never going to get into the
You
Senate.
won't regret it.
Having dropped the Prime Minister's book on the floor, my Senate appointment is toast.
Maybe Jacques Demers will take care of it for you.
Hope so.
We'll be back with another episode next week of Hockey Inside Out.